welcome to Bonita's Kitchen and thank you for joining us. What I'm going to be making for you today is a pork bang belly. And for those of you that's saying, what is a pork bang belly? This is a dessert originated in Newfoundland and Labrador, normally made at Christmas Eve. But today I'm going to show you the method how to do it. And as well, bang belly is a funny story, but bang belly is just a Newfoundland word for this dessert. But after you finished eating it, you usually bang your belly and say, oh my, I'm stuffed. So what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about it as we go, tell you the ingredients, what you need to use, how to make it as we go. So let's get started. And there are different versions of this pork bang belly. And what I'm going to do, because we had a request from many people to make this dessert, I'm going to show you making it with the fat pork, which is a salted pork that we chop out in little pieces to make scrunchins. And I'm going to make it with stale bread. And you can make it as well just with flour. So like I said, there's different versions. The two I'm going to show you today, which is really going to be just one dessert, but I'm going to tell you how to make it with the fat pork and then tell you how much ingredients you would need to use without the fat pork. So let's get started on showing you what the ingredients is. So the version of pork bang belly that I'm going to be making today is with stale bread, and the stale bread is probably 3 or 4 days old, and you know, it doesn't matter what type, homemade or store-bought. So, and I'll show you how to work that. We're going to be using raisins, flour, we're going to be using some molasses, baking soda, cinnamon, cloves and allspice, and of course water is going to be used to dampen the stale bread. And the fat pork that I was telling you about is just a salted pork, and it's just a salted pork. And then what I'm going to do is cut it up in little pieces, and we're going to make some scrunchins. So what we'll do now is get started talking about the bread, and I'll explain everything else as we go. So what I got is about 6 to 8 cups of stale bread. You could use more depending on the size of the pork bang belly that you would want to make. And that equals to 1 to 2 loaves of bread. So pretty much all I'm doing is breaking it in pieces like this. And again, you could measure it or you can eyeball it. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit more, because it's not going to make a difference at the end for sure. So it's going to be just like this, and that's for me, it's my homemade stale bread. So you can see there's just bread that's left, and you just break it up in pieces like this. So what I'm going to do is pour about, I'd say 1 or 2 cups of water over it. It's just to dampen the stale bread and to get it to break down. Okay, and maybe you may not have any stale bread, but if you don't, just freeze your bread, let it dry out just that little tiny bit if you got bread in the fridge. But usually at your grocery store, they got some 2 or 3 day old bread. So just break it like this into little pieces. I got the water in there. I only needed, like I said, that much, and let that soak for just a bit, and I'll tell you what else you would need to do with that after. So what we're going to do now is to cut up our fat pork. You can buy it in chunks like this, and I'm certain that you can probably ask your grocery store manager or one of the attendants and see if they got any in the store if you're not here in Newfoundland or Labrador. So what I'm going to do now is show you the size you would need that cut. So pretty much if you're buying it in a chunk like this, cut down first, give yourself, you know, that line, and then take it then and go this way. And then after, I'll show you how to take it off the rind, and that's the hard piece of skin that's on this side of the fat pork. So then just pull your knife down over the back of this like this. And you want to be careful you don't cut yourself, because again, using a sharp knife is better, but a sharp knife can also cut, so you don't want to cut your fingers. So now what I've been told by our elders, this, like you said, this is different versions of pork bang belly. And the one I'm doing today, again, is made with stale bread. But no matter what type you get, they're all equally delicious. So what I'm going to do is just continue cutting like this in just small little pieces. You can see there. And we're going to make some scrunchins. And I want about a cup of this fat pork. And as well, this recipe for pork bang belly is not known by everybody in Newfoundland. Even my mom, I had asked her about it and she's like, oh, I can't never remember having this. But still, in different parts of Newfoundland and Labrador, this meal had been made. And I was told that it was made years ago by fishermen and people that worked in the woods. They took it with them, not necessarily made by those guys, but maybe by their wives or themselves at home. And they took it with them because this is so filling. It gives you a little bit of a full belly after you eat this meal for sure. It's a dessert, but I guess as a snack as well. So anyway.
So that's probably why they call it you bang your belly after.
You bang your belly after. Yeah. You're pretty full. You're not sluggish, but you're full for sure. And again, it's a dessert, not a meal. And now I'm going to start this frying in my cast iron frying pan, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so now that I got about a cup of fat pork cut up, for those of you that don't have access to the fat pork, or you don't want to use fat pork in this dessert because you're thinking fat pork in a dessert, that sounds crazy, but you don't taste that because it's an oil, and you're going to use oil anyway. So if you don't want to use this, it's going to ream off a lot of oil. I'm only going to use 2 tablespoonfuls of it. So if you just want to use 2 tablespoonfuls of vegetable oil or oil of choice, what you want to use, and if you don't want to use oil and you want to use butter, just melt it down and use it that way. But today I wanted to make this so that you can see this version, and then you could know by leaving that out to make the other version. So I'm going to let this start frying there now until it starts to turn into little scrunchins. And then the reasons for frying out the fat pork, it's to get out all of that grease. And I want it to be scrunchins. I don't necessarily want it to be chunks of fat pork inside of this dessert. And again, like I said, it puts on a very nice flavor because it's an oil, but it's in a fat pork version. So what I'm going to do now is just let it ream out, and that is just fry down, get all that oil off. You can see it there, but we're only going to take 2 tablespoonfuls of that oil to work in through this delicious fat pork bang belly dessert. Okay, our scrunchins are almost cooked there, so I'm just going to leave them alone for a moment. So now that the bread has been soaked in that water, you can feel that it's damp. What we got to do with that, because you can't really bake this like that, so you got to take it all out of your big bowl, put it into a strainer, and then you're going to push the water out of it into another bowl. Okay, so with a masher or a flat surface, just push all of the liquid out into the bowl. And as you can see, it'll run down into the bowl. You don't need that because with the stale bread, it's another replacement for flour. And again, this bang belly is also made with flour, and I'm including a small amount into it as well. But I like the stale bread version. So that's pretty much all you want to do, just until it's damp. Okay, I'll show you what's next. So pretty much all I'm doing now is dumping the bread, the stale bread, into bowl that we started out with, and it's going to look something like that. And this is the one that we're going to mix in. And what's so beautiful about this pork bang belly dessert, we bake it all in this cast iron pan, and that's the way they did it years ago. So I want to kind of recreate what they did and to go as close to it as possible. So what we're going to do now is take these scrunchins out of the pan, because I don't need any more done on them, and I'll show you what that looks like. So now all you're going to do is to remove the scrunchins from the pan, and I'm going to be applying these to our recipe in 2 stages, and I'll show you what that's all about. And it doesn't matter if you've got a few pieces left in there, it won't affect anything. I just want it out, and I'll show you as well. I'm going to take 2 tablespoonfuls of oil off of this, like this, and I'm going to discard the rest of oil that's in there because I don't need it. I'm just going to pour it out into that pan. And now what we'll do is get started making this delicious pork bang belly recipe. So the little bit of oil that's left in our cast iron pan, we're going to leave there, then I don't have to grease it. We have got the discarded oil, the 2 tablespoonfuls we're going to use for making our pork bang belly, and our scrunchins. So what I'll do now is start adding in ingredients into our stale soaked bread, and then I'll tell you the amount as we go. So what we're going to be using is 1/2 cup of flour. Now this is white bread and white flour. You could use wheat bread and wheat flour. It doesn't matter, or you can change it up whichever way. But this is what I got going here today. So that's the flour, and it's 1/2 cup. And I'm just going to toss that in with the stale soaked bread that we already drained off. So it's just dampened there now. And then we're going to add in the spices, which is 1 teaspoonful of cinnamon. You just sprinkle it on in. And there's 1/2 teaspoonful of allspice, and about 1/4 of a teaspoonful of cloves. Now if you don't like these spices, you can use the spices that you enjoy using, and just toss that through. So I'm just tossing the spices around in all that mixture, and that's just to get it equally blended, but the smell is amazing. So what I'm going to do now, I got 1 cup of molasses. You can use dark or light, it doesn't matter. I'm going to pour it into my cast iron pot or pan, and I put a little oil in the measuring cup in hopes that the molasses will come out easier. You know, it gets a little thick. Sometimes if it's hot in here, it's a bit more runnier. And then I'm going to add in 1.5 cups of raisins. So just toss them on in there. So pretty much what we're doing now is just warming the molasses and just giving the raisins a little time to warm as well and just get nice and soft. And then I'm going to toss back in the 2 tablespoonfuls of oil that we took off our fat pork scrunchins, and let that feel the love in there as well. So now I'll tell you what's next. So I hope you're following along here and you're not too confused with this delicious pork bang belly dessert. And it's also referred as a pudding. And I got tons of puddings on there on our channel. And this recipe for this pork bang belly today, it'll be at the bottom of this video, so you go ahead and check that out. And as well, while you're there, if you haven't subscribed already, you can hit the subscribe button, and we would love for you to join us and to be a part of all of what we've been bringing to you over these past almost 5 years. I got 1 teaspoonful and a half of baking soda. We're going to pour this on into the mixture of stale bread, flour, and all of those spices. And now what I'm also going to do while I'm waiting for this just to warm, I'm not cooking it, we're going to be putting in just a half of these scrunchins into this mixture and leave this part, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Okay, so pretty much what you're going to do now is mix those scrunchins in with this mixture. And like I said, it don't look like much there now, but trust me when I say, when it come out, I'm after making this one a few times and sharing it with a lot of our friends, and they have loved it. So I'm going to as well reach for the molasses and the raisins and pour this on into this mixture. So pretty much what we're going to do now is bring this all together. We're going to stir in the molasses and the raisins until it's all incorporated in with the flour and the stale bread, all of those spices. So pretty much that is what it's going to look like when it's all mixed together. Now try to get as much of the liquid out of the bread as possible, because again, depending on how much liquid that's in your mixture, it depends on how long it's going to be in the oven baking. Usually this one bakes in 1 hour of putting it in the oven, but like you said, the moisture that's in the bread might take a little bit longer if it's not taken out and just damp, not wet. So again, the recipe is going to be posted in the bottom. This is the cast iron pan that we fried up our scrunchins in. We're going to bake it in the oven. So what I'm going to do now is just scrape all of this delicious mixture into my cast iron pan. So you're just going to take all of this delicious mixture and put it out there. Now you're not going to flatten this because this it's got to build a little bit of character. So you're going to kind of keep it all in the center like this. We want to bake it a little bit of a bump. And again, this dessert is delicious. It got lots of flavor to it, and it's a bit of a dense dessert. And you'll find that when you cut into it, oh, it's very, very, very delicious. So now I'm going to take the fat pork that's left over and just put into the top and around this pudding. This pork bang belly pudding. Okay, so that's the rest of the pork in my fat pork bang belly. Now again, if you don't want to use fat pork, you don't need to use it. I showed you the version. You can just use 2 tablespoonfuls of oil of choice or butter, and mix in with your molasses and your raisins when you're just warming it on the pan. If you don't have a cast iron pan, you could use a regular pan and bake it in a baking dish, and that's entirely up to you. This is the way it was done here in Newfoundland and Labrador years ago, and you know what? They wrote the book on delicious desserts. I'm not going to change it. So what we're going to do now is put this in the oven, 350 degrees, for an hour. We'll check it part ways through just to see. I'll turn the light on, and for you the same, you can check it. It's not going to go down because it's a dense dessert. Okay, what we're going to do now while we're waiting for this to bake, we're going to make a delicious white cream sauce to go over it. So I'm going to pop this into my oven. I always said my dad's cast iron pan was 100 pounds for sure. And I know that could be funny, but put it in the center of your oven, close the door, uncovered, put the timer on for 60 minutes. just check it with the light on. And now let's get started making our nice white cream sauce. So while we're waiting now for our pork bang belly to bake, we can make our cream sauce, our white cream sauce. And I've made this one before. If you looked at the video for molasses pudding, you've seen the same one. But I'll redo it so that if somebody haven't seen that one, you will know. So rather than telling you all of the ingredients, I'll do it as we put it into the pot. And so let's get started. So what I'm going to do is put my pot on a medium heat. I'm going to take 2 tablespoonfuls of butter or margarine and put right into the pot. And I'm going to start that to melt down. And then I'm going to add in a half a cup of milk. But I'm just going to give that just a couple of seconds there to start to melt down. And then I'll show you what's next. So then we're going to pour in a half a cup of milk in with the butter and a half a cup of hot water. And let that start to melt and cook just a little, just until it starts to warm up, I should say, not necessarily cook, because there's nothing there to cook really. I'm laughing at myself. So what we'll do now is add in 1/3 of a cup of white sugar. So this is a white cream sauce, so this is why I'm using white sugar. Okay, as you can see, the milk, water, sugar and butter is all boiling there. It's ready to go. So what I'm going to be doing now is putting 2 tablespoonfuls of flour into about 1/4 of a cup or 1/3 of a cup of cold water. And I'm going to put it into a mason jar just so as I can shake any of the lumps out of it. And you've seen them in videos before. If you're dealing with flour and you want to make a bit of a paste or a sauce, you need to get the lumps out of that. So just shake them out, and then we're going to pour it into our pot. Okay, so now that that's ready to go, I'm going to pour in the flour and the cold water into this mixture. Now if you can't have flour, you could use cornstarch. That's fine. It's not going to change the taste of this delicious sauce. So I'm just going to stir it around until it starts to thicken. I'm going to take it off the heat then and add in our other ingredients. So pretty much all you're doing is just waiting for the sauce to just thicken a little bit. And again, our pork bang belly is not ready, but I want to prepare the sauce so that it's done in advance. If you need to rewarm it, that's fine as well. And if you want it a little more thicker, that's fine. But this should be good. We got 1/8 of a teaspoonful of almond extract. I'm going to pour this on into the sauce, and I'm going to have about 1/8 of a teaspoonful of nutmeg I'm going to be putting in there as well. Okay, I think I'm going to use my whisk for this and just put the nutmeg on in, and the almond extract is already in there. And then we're going to have just whatever you want. Eyeball the zest of orange. Pick the orange you want. I got a navel orange here just for a little citrusy taste, and the same thing for a lemon. So freshly grated a little bit into it, and that would just taste amazing in this sauce. And that's all you need to do there, and just stir that around. And I'm going to put it back on the damper on a low simmer and let it just keep warm. So yeah, so just put it on the damper on a low simmer and let that sit there like that and keep warm for when your pork bang belly is ready. It's almost baked. Again, we put it in for 1 hour. It could be less depending on your oven and how much you're making. And again, it varies with the amount of liquid that's in the bread that you had soaked in water. So don't be alarmed if it's less or it's a little bit more, because it doesn't matter. It's not going to ruin this delicious dessert. So meet me back here when it's baked and I'll show you what it looks like. Welcome back to Bonita's Kitchen, and thank you for joining us. What I'm going to do now is reach for my pork bang billy in the oven. It's baked. I'm going to shut it off and grab a mitt to show you what it looks like. Okay, I always said that it's a ton weight, but it is definitely. Okay, it looks absolutely delicious. And it smells amazing. I cannot wait for you to make this and to know how delicious it is. So what I'm going to do now is reach for my sauce, which I've been setting there on warm, and I'm just going to pour it into this bowl. So as you can see, this is what your pork bang belly is going to look like. If you don't want the pork, just leave it out and only use the oil. And what I'm going to do now is cut out a nice helping, and again, depending on your oven, like anywhere from an hour or less, and then you can take it out and serve it hot, because this is a dessert, a hot dessert. So I'm going to take out a nice helping and put it over there in that plate. This smells absolutely delicious, you guys. And just look inside, how nice and delicious. You can see the raisins and you can even see the chunks of bread still there. And that's okay. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to add a little bit. I got these little cast iron pans as a gift for the cream sauce over the top of your pudding. And again, this pudding is for a family. I mean, you could make quite a bit servings out of this, unless you want a big helping. So there'll probably be 8 pieces or more. So what I'm going to do now is turn this around for you to see it. Bring this closer to me to have a taste, and I'll tell you what it tastes like. Okay, I'm going to pour up a cup of tea. I'm having a cup of red rose tea. And I did have a viewer ask me this just a few days ago, what kind of tea I enjoy drinking, and red rose is one of them, and another one is mint tea I'll have at night time. But with my food is red rose. So this is what the texture looks like here. You can see it there. I'm going to have a little bit of the sauce and a little tiny bit of the pork bang belly and have a taste. Okay, I can't wait. Oh my gosh. Taste all the spices and that cream sauce. This pork bang belly, I can rave about it because I've had it before. But you don't really taste the pork as much unless you get a little piece of it and you chunk, you get that little chunk in your mouth and you taste it. You can taste the raisins and all of those flavors. Delicious. I love it, and I hope you guys try it and you will love it as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Bonita's Kitchen for pork bang belly today. We were so excited to bring this recipe to you because we've had so many requests. And again, if you have never had this before, don't be afraid to try it. It is delicious. I will have the recipe posted at the bottom of this video as well. The subscribe button is there. If you are a new sub, please go in and subscribe, and we will show you over 200 videos that we've already posted to YouTube and our website. And our website access is www.bonitaskitchen.com, and we would love for you to join us. And if you're already one of our subscribers, thank you so much for all of your support. We are so appreciative of all of what you've shared, your comments, suggestions, and we've been getting to just about all of our delicious recipes that we were asked for. But thank you for joining us here today, and don't forget to visit us on our Facebook page. From our kitchen to yours, you have a wonderful day.